First, it was All-Pro Jason Kelsey, longtime Eagle, one of the greatest to ever suit up for our birds. Today, the news that Fletcher Cox has also decided to retire. All on the precipice of the free agency period, which begins tomorrow. We're going to talk about that and more up next on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Whatever time it is today that you're listening to this program, welcome to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Exciting times for the program because I have good news to share, and that is that the podcasts are now finally uploading to the new YouTube channel that I've established for this program. So, if you're listening to this program, you've been a fan of this podcast, and also we just want another avenue of which to listen to the podcast, you can now go to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff YouTube page and subscribe. So go on there and make sure you hit the subscribe button because what is going to come outside of just the audio versions that are now being loaded onto YouTube is eventually, and sooner than later, folks, you're going to see my beautiful mug on the screen because what I'm going to do is we're going to open up to live, and I mean live, not pre-recorded podcasts, live podcasts, where you as the audience can come in and type out your questions, make any comments you want to do live while I'm talking to either myself, to a guest, or whatnot on the show. So it's going to be audio and visual going forward. I'm like to ideally launch it on my 200th episode. This is 196. So that tells you probably within a week or so, I'm hoping to go live on YouTube. So again, if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you go to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff, the with being the W/Geoff, just like it is on the the platform that you're listening to. Okay, exactly the same, written out the same way. Find me on YouTube, find the show on YouTube, and hit subscribe. Okay, do that now before you forget, and then you won't. Then you'll be right there, ready to rock and roll when I am on YouTube when we get that up and running in terms of live content. But all of these podcasts from about 2 or 3 podcasts ago forward are now uploading to YouTube. Unfortunately, I was still not able to upload all my podcasts on there. I wanted to get them all from back for day one, basically put all two years worth on there, but just having too many issues with that. So really, it's from like I think podcast 194 on is now going on YouTube now. So, all right, enough of that. It's just another way to communicate with you guys, and you guys, more importantly, to communicate with me directly and live. Okay. So, that being said, yes, after Jason Kelsey retired just about a week ago, today, another Eagle legend, Fletcher Cox, has decided to retire. Now, neither one of these are surprises. I think for me personally, Cox surprisingly is more surprising, I should say, than Kelsey. I knew Kelsey was going to retire. I didn't think he was going to come back. But Cox, I thought might. And so this one, believe it or not, hits me a little harder than Kelsey because I expected Kelsey to retire. I was kind of on the fence about Cox, and I actually thought that he was probably at least going to take, like I mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago when I had Matt on, and just kind of take a half season type deal. Just be like, call me in November and that type of thing. Kind of like a rental player, like Ndamukong Suh we did with him a few years ago. But he has decided to retire, and you know what? This guy is one of the greatest all-time Eagles, and in my opinion, because I know it's debatable, because everyone, including myself, was a huge Jerome Brown fan, and I do think talent alone that Jerome Brown is the greatest defensive tackle to ever play for the Eagles. But he didn't play long enough. So you have to go beyond talent. You got to go with years played. You got to go with, availability. I mean, one thing about Cox is he was incredibly durable. I don't think he ever missed more than 2 games at once, and that wasn't even that often. So, and for a guy who plays the interior, a lot like Kelsey, to be Iron Men, which to me adds to their mystique as being such great players, as that they were on the field, um, is remarkable, really, for those interior type positions. And because of that, and as well as his longevity and productivity, Fletcher Cox, in my opinion, is the greatest defensive tackle of all time when you put it all together. Again, if you want to debate with me with Jerome Brown, listen, I saw Jerome Brown play, and I agree with you. From again a talent standpoint alone, he was the most talented, but it takes a lot more than that. And unfortunately, he had the tragic accident, and he didn't play that long. So you got to factor that into the equation, and therefore, Fletcher Cox is the greatest defensive tackle to ever play for the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, Now we got to hope that Jalen Carter one day will have something to say about that, because we really need him and Jordan Davis to take over now, especially Jordan Davis. The onus is on him. You know, Jalen Carter is going to be good. I think we know that already. Jordan Davis is the one who needs to step up now, big time. So, congratulations to Fletcher Cox on an outstanding Philadelphia Eagles career. And he will be sorely missed. His leadership will be missed. His ability will be missed. He had a good season last year. He probably was the most consistent defensive tackle on the team last season. And he's now retired. So all we got left is from the basically original four is Lane Johnson, who's got probably a couple of years left, a couple good years left, put it that way. And Brandon Graham was coming back for one last season, his final year. He already said that his 15th will be his last. So, but he's on his last leg. You can't really depend on Brandon Graham to provide much in terms of defensive ability at this point in his career. I think it's ultra important now because of Cox and Kelsey's departure to be there for leadership. I think that is the biggest element for Brandon Graham now going forward. And he can still play. I'm not trying to say he's a liability on the field, but he's in his 15th season. You can't expect this guy to go out there, and get 10 sacks. You know what I mean? Now, speaking of sacks, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Eagles do in free agency. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on that, about free agency as it begins tomorrow. Before I get into that, I have to address this once again, and it really pains me to do so. But and I mentioned it in the last episode about the Saquon Barkley to the Eagles rumors. And they have been ramped up to the top of the mountains ever since on my last podcast. And so I have to address it again. Because, again, just to say this, and hopefully most of you in my audience knows that it's a bunch of BS. There's no way that Saquon Barkley is going to come to the Eagles. I don't care who's saying it. And unfortunately, a lot of the bigger Eagles local stations have been picking up on it and promoting this garbage. And I know why they're doing it, and I've said it all along. It's because of clickbait. They want as many fans to click on their articles, even though they have no basis in reality whatsoever. Now, am I not saying that the Eagles wouldn't like that Barkley? Of course not. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they have a, quote, interest in Barkley, but they're not going to pay Barkley. And Barkley's going to get some big-time offers, and the Eagles are not going to match those offers. And therefore, there is no chance in hell that Saquon Barkley is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle. And so all of these articles, and they were just nonstop all week. I'm sure you saw them out there. If you didn't see them, you heard them. Just everyone and their brother uh, saying that Barkley was coming to the Eagles. There's absolutely no chance that's happening. And so I feel I just need to say it again. I mean, I just feel like I need to say it again. It's just total nonsense. And you got people just, pumping this up as if he's coming to the Eagles. And why? Because he went to Penn State. Barkley is going to get an offer that is going to exceed what the Eagles' budget is for running back. That's the end of the story. That's why he's not coming here. So if you happen to be listening to this program and hopeful or wanting Barkley to be an Eagle, please just know that so that you're not so distraught when Barkley signs with somebody else this week. Okay? All right. Now, on to free agency. Actually, before I do a couple of things I wanted to get into. Let's go back to Kelsey and Cox, because let's just go back to the Kelsey draft. I was looking at this during the week, and I figured I'd bring it to your attention because I think it's very interesting. The 2011 draft, which is when Kelsey was drafted in the 6th round, you want to talk about a player that saved the draft from being an absolute complete swing and miss from top to bottom? Listen to this. This was the year they drafted Danny Watkins first. 23rd pick overall. Danny Watkins, an offensive guard, I think he was. Never played it down. Should I say that? Never played it down? I should say, let me back up a little bit. He did play some downs, but was completely ineffective and retired after less than 2 years in the league. He wanted to be a fireman. So that was their first pick that year. Second pick was Jaquan Jarrett, who had like one half of a good season, and then he never played again out of Temple, the safety. He played for 4 years in the league total, and he was gone. Third pick was Curtis Marsh. Who? What? Where? I remember him. Defensive back. He played a walloping 2 years, just like Danny Watkins in the league. That was his 3rd round pick. 4th round pick was wonderful. The only Matthews player in the family who sucked. Out of all the Matthews, Clay Matthews, his father, Bruce Matthews, all the Matthews, the Eagles draft the one who sucked ass, Casey Matthews, who actually played 3 years, probably because the Eagles had nothing else at linebacker, because he was awful. So that was their 4th round pick. Their other 4th round pick was Alex Henry, who had 1 good year of kicking, and then he was out of the league. So out of these first 5 picks, of which they were all within the 4th round, is the latest. 1 1st round pick, 1 2nd round pick, 1 3rd round pick, 2 4th round picks. Those 5 picks, none of them played longer than 3 years. So the 5th round pick was actually probably the best pick outside of Kelsey, and it's Dion Lewis. But only played a couple of years with the Eagles, but he did actually end up being in the league off and on 9 years. He was the 5th round pick out of Pittsburgh. And he bounced around the league. He was with the Eagles for about 2 or 3 years, and then he bounced around the league. Played with the Patriots. I think he might have won a Super Bowl with the Patriots, as a matter of fact. Not a bad pick. He was actually pretty decent. The next 5th round pick was Julian Vandervelde. Again, who, what, where? Hardly played in the league. And then the 6th round pick, their 8th overall pick in the draft, was Jason Kelsey, who's going to the Hall of Fame. But what a disaster of a pick of a draft that year 2011 was for the Eagles. They were fortunate to get a Hall of Famer in the 6th round. By the way, their other 3 picks, they had another 6th round pick, Brian Roll, never made it in the league. Greg Lloyd was their first 7th round pick. He never made it in the league. And Stanley Heavily Havili, I remember him, running back out of USC, played for 1 year. What a absolute disaster of a draft pick that was. Because the only other draft pick that was worth even mentioning is Deion Lewis. And he played the majority of his career not in Philadelphia. That has got to be one of the worst drafts I have ever seen in my life. And that's with them picking a Hall of Famer, Jason Kelsey. So I had to bring that up. That was just astounding to me. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is just kind of go over Fletcher Cox's career. So he ends up with 188 games played, which is one of the tops in Eagles history. 70 sacks, and for a defensive tackle, that's very, very impressive. 16 forced fumbles, 351 tackles. He did actually score 3 touchdowns on fumbles. And had, I mentioned now he had 16 forced fumbles in his career. I thought I remember him having an interception, but he never had an interception. I thought he did. Must have been just a fumble pickup. And he had 88 tackles for losses, and he had 173 quarterback hits. He was a first team All Pro once, a second team All Pro 3 times. So he's a 4-time All Pro in his career, and he made the Pro Bowl 5 times. 6 times, rather. 6 times Pro Bowl. Those are Hall of Fame credentials. I'm not sure if he's going to get in, but those are Hall of Fame credentials. I think he will get. I think he will. You can make a good case for him to get in, but I'm not sure he did enough. He didn't win a Super Bowl as well as we know. He might be in the Hall of Very Good. I'm not sure if he's in the Hall of Great, but you know what? He's borderline. He borderline. Um, I may put him in Hall of Fame if I had to vote. If I had to vote right now today, I might. I think he was. I think he was that good. I think he. I think he was. I think he's right there. What do you guys think? All right, so I wanted to just go over that really quick. This won't be a long podcast today. One other thing I wanted to cover, and then we're gonna let you go. But I will be back this week, so this is why it's super important for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, make sure Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff, Philadelphia Eagles Talk W/Geoff. That's the YouTube channel. Go there, subscribe, okay? And obviously, as I mentioned, we're not leaving any of the platforms you currently listen to this podcast on for audio. Okay. So no worried about that. But if you want to see eventually the live interviews, myself, and be able to chat and ask questions and interact with the show while I'm on, that's going to be the platform to do it going forward. That's kind of the future of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. So again, check that out on YouTube. Subscribe. Again, there's not much content on there now except for my last few episodes, but a lot's going to be on there going forward. All right, so free agency opens up tomorrow, and I'm probably going to have a podcast if something really hits tomorrow and Eagles bring in, land a big name or two. I'll have a podcast tomorrow night. So I'll be on Monday. When I say tomorrow night, I mean Monday. If not, it'll be Tuesday morning. Either one. Okay, so there will be a podcast for the next couple of days. We'll be recapping what the Eagles have done in the early stages of. This is the tampering period. That's, I guess, the legal tampering, which is an oxymoron that begins tomorrow. So essentially, most of these contracts are agreed to. They're not final until free agency actually begins and starts. And that's why there's that little caveat that there are times when sometimes players or teams can pull out of those agreements. So again, that's why they're not quote unquote official. But for the most part, because it's rare for a team or player to pull out from any of these deals, so we'll have a pretty good idea of who the Eagles will be signing free agency during this tampering period again, which starts tomorrow. So definitely make sure you you come back for that and get my thoughts on it, and I'll get your comments and thoughts on it as well. Again, right now you can go to the YouTube page and make comments on any of the podcasts. Okay, so that's the best way to probably reach me right now. Or there's the email address that I've always had, and that is petwg3 at gmail.com. Okay, petwg3 at gmail.com. That's the other way of getting a hold of me as well. All right, but again, I kind of direct you to YouTube for any commentary. All right. So that's probably going to wrap up this for now. I wanted to talk about Kelsey. Certainly, Cox's breaking news today. A little bit on free agency, and of course, talking about these ridiculous Barkley rumors that are just totally nonsensical. Totally. All right. That being said, folks, thanks again for tuning in. This is episode 196 as we close in on 200, and pretty excited about that. All right, so lots of news to come. This should be a very aggressive Howie that I'm expecting this week. The Eagles have a lot of cap space, especially with these two retirements. They got a lot coming off without having to pay Cox, a lot coming off without having to pay Kelsey. You got the $30 million cap boost that the NFL gave every team, and the fact that the Eagles were already 20-something million dollars under the cap heading into free agency. So the money's there for Howie to spend in the first time in many years. Now, again, they also need to set aside funds to sign guys like, Landon Dickerson and obviously Devontae Smith. So, some of that money is going to be left for them, to sign long term. But still, Howie's got plenty of capital to work with. And it'll be interesting to see what he does over the next few days, especially. All right, folks, thanks again for tuning in to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Remember to go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel there. That's where the future of this program will reside. All right? As always, go Birds, fly Eagles fly. And we'll catch you next time on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Till then, take care, and we'll catch you next time. Go Birds. See you later.